Hello, good evening to you and welcome to News 360. We are live from the News Hub here at Adisawe, Kanda. I'm Natalie Fort.
And my name is Alfred Okanse. Coming up in the bulletin tonight.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by
Accra High Court refers aspects of motion filed by former CEO of Cocoa Board, Dr. Steve Opuni, to Supreme Court for interpretation.
President Akufo-Addo launches coordinated program of economic and social development policies.
Also ahead this evening, Cabinet approves 50 million Ghana cedis for second phase of University of Ghana Medical Center.
And in business tonight, inflation rate for March down by 0.2% to 10.4%.
And on the foreign front this evening, Algeria military plane crash kills 257 on board.
We're going to bring you all these and more, plus some entertainment news, sports as well, and some international news. Stay with us here on News 360. So our first story this evening, an Accra High Court has referred aspects of the motion filed by the former Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Board to the Supreme Court for interpretation. Dr. Stephen Opuni, in his motion, demanded prosecution to furnish him with all relevant documents the prosecution intends to rely on during the trial. Here's a report by Godfrey Tanam.
The defense team argued the accused person is demanding the documents from the prosecution to aid him put up a proper defense. The lead counsel of the defense team, Samuel Kujo, also demanded documents the prosecution will not be relying on for trial. Samuel Kujo insisted his client is entitled to all documents in possession of the prosecution. He further argued that the accused person was an official of the Cocoa Board and never acted in his own capacity. He therefore prayed the court to seek interpretation from the Supreme Court since the prosecution is opposing the application demanding the documents. Deputy Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame, leading the prosecution, described the application as irrelevant. He argued providing the documents will go against the fundamental human rights of the accused person since it would take time to furnish him with all the documents which will delay trial. Godfrey Dame stated that the defense was only entitled to relevant evidence and not all the documents they have demanded. The prosecution further indicated the application is not supported by any human rights law as referred to by the defense lawyers. Court of Appeal Judge Justice Clement Honyonuga, who sat in as an additional High Court judge, said the issue in contention is already before the Supreme Court and it is proper to wait on the judgment of the Apex Court to ensure consistency. He therefore adjourned his ruling on the motion to April 30. Meanwhile, the court premises was not flooded with supporters as was the case in Dr. Opuni's first appearance. Godfrey Tanam, TV3 News, Accra.
President Akufo-Addo says his vision is to develop an optimistic, self-confident and prosperous nation through the creative exploitation of human and natural resources. The president, who launched the Coordinated Program of Economic and Social Development Policies 2017 to 2024, said government is on course to establishing a strong economy to enhance growth.
Themed An Agenda for Jobs, Creating Prosperity and Equal Opportunity for All, the Coordinated Program of Economic and Social Development Policies spans 2017 to 2024. When fully implemented, the policies are expected to reduce unemployment and provide job opportunities for the youth. The policies cover economic development, social development, environment, infrastructure and human settlement, government corruption and public accountability, and strengthening Ghana's role in international affairs.
The programs and the activities that would derive from the vision, however, requires the cultivation of a new planning culture which captures not only the views of stakeholders but also recognizes their roles and creates space for the active active participation and ownership of the plans by the private sector.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu urged government to ensure opportunities are not shared along party lines. Majority Leader Osechi Mensah Bonsu said development efforts should be well coordinated to promote effective, sustainable social and economic development. President Akufo-Addo said his government is on course to restore hope and operate an open and fair society in which mutual trust and economic opportunities exist for all.
This vision demands innovative pursuits to create opportunities for Ghanaians to apply their skills, talents, and knowledge to productive ventures. It is, however, obvious that the jobs created cannot be sustained in a situation where the country is dependent on imports of foods, on imports of the basic necessities of life.
The President called for a concerted effort for the effective implementation of the policies.
I'm calling on public servants, private sector operators, organized labor, actors in the informal sector, members of the media, institutions for research and learning, civil society actors, religious figures, traditional authorities, and friends of Ghana to join hands in ensuring that this national clarion call resonates so that we usher in a new era to create jobs for our people, to set off on a new epoch of Ghana beyond aid, and to generate prosperity and equal opportunity for all.
President Akufo-Addo thus becomes the first president under the Fourth Republic to see to an effective coordination of a national policy within a record time.
And our banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Etuahene, has kicked against a request by local banks for an extended deadline for the Bank of Ghana new capital requirement to 2020. Now, the central bank has set a December 2018 deadline for its new capital requirement.
Chief executives of local banks met with President Akufo-Addo earlier this week to negotiate a possible extension of the payment of new capital requirements to 2022. The capital requirement set at 400 million cedis from the previous 120 million cedis is to be paid no later than December 2018, leaving local banks fearful that the banking sector could be destabilized. But the banking consultant, Dr. Richmond Etuahene, disagrees.
In economic sense, I think to 2020 is quite unreasonable because the economic fundamentals would have changed, such that by the time they even had the nearly $100 million, the fundamentals would have changed. So for me, it is quite, I won't say reasonable, it's not reasonable.
Dr. Etuahene tasked the local banks to practice good corporate governance.
The bank itself must be up and doing good corporate governance practices. Have a very good board, effective, independent executive directors. Set good committees. Our committees and our board should not be flooded by political activists. It should not be family cronies. It should not be nepotism or cronism. We went to the same school, Prempeh College. So whether I can sit on a board or not, the next day he sits on a board. So, if we want us to be up and doing, Bank of Ghana has done well, bringing the corporate governance directives last month. But we must ensure that we enforce it to the word so that we can have a better board system.
Following a meeting Monday, the president established a committee in hopes to come to an agreement feasible for both the government and local banks.
Now, it's clear that some local banks in the country raise concerns that meeting this minimum capital requirement of 400 million cedis is not going to be possible with them. And therefore, they've hoped and put up a proposal between this two-day meeting between them and the president between April 9 and April 10, a proposal of a staggered payment form or plan of a sort. And so the Association of Indigenous Banks met with President Akufo-Addo on Monday, April 9, 2 days ago. The local banks want the presidency to extend the deadline from December 2018 to a deadline of December 2022. Now, the banks made the proposal to provide 170 million cedis by the end of 2018. That's this year. So instead of the deadline in total for the minimum capital requirement being December 2018, the banks are proposing to provide 170 million cedis by the end of the year, while 220 million cedis is provided by the banks by the end of 2019. And the bank further proposes for 280 million cedis to be provided by the end of 2020. So we can see them pushing the payments between the years ahead. 340 million by the end of 2021, and finally 400 million cedis by 2022. This is to make it a form of create some ease within the banking sector for them to meet this minimum capital requirement put forward by the Bank of Ghana. Now, between this two-day meeting, a committee was set up, which is going to be made up of 3 members from the BOG, 3 members from the Ministry of Finance, 3 from local banks, and a chair from the presidency. The committee is expected to submit the final reports to the president on the 26th of May, 2018. So the banking sector basically feels like this deadline could in fact stabilize the local banking sector in the country, and that's what they're pushing forward for, Alfred.
Fantastic. So, Natalie, thank you. So, what we do know is that the establishment of this committee does not bother on or does not consider in any way the possible extension of that deadline or a reduction in that minimum capital requirement as some of the banks were asking for. What we can confirm, however, is that these banks raise concerns about unfair playing field, and they ask that there should be a fair playing field for all the banks in this country. That's the source of information we're getting from that meeting as part of some information came before. I've been joined on the telephone by Professor Godfred Bobkin. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time. Good evening to you. Now, the terms of reference of this committee, from what we understand from our sources, that meeting, it's not clear. The president hasn't communicated their terms of reference yet. But what can they really do when the Bank of Ghana is very insistent on its position on this matter?
Thank you very much, and good evening to your cherished listeners. I think that it's an important development. It's coming a bit late from my perspective because I want to believe that the central bank had a clear procedure that they followed, consultation with the banks, both local banks and foreign banks, before they made the announcement about the minimum capital requirement. And for that matter, the deadline by which every bank must raise that minimum capital requirement. So the question is, what were the local banks saying at those meetings, at those consultations? Is it the case that they were dissatisfied with the minimum capital requirement, including the timeline, and they didn't make that known? Or they were okay, and suddenly they have realized that they cannot raise the minimum capital requirement, and therefore they are not channeling their concerns directly to the central bank and would rather want the president to intervene. Well, I'm not too sure how that will relate in terms of the operational independence of the central bank. My understanding is that the president will take the concerns of this bank and will channel those concerns appropriately to the central bank to look into it. But of course, the president has got the right also to set up a committee to look into their concerns on all of that. But I think that if you look at the minimum capital requirement, I mean, that is not really that high. If the local banks really wants to raise that amount of money, it's more about probably if they are asking for extension, that can be looked into. There is a precedence to that. A couple of years ago, when they increased the minimum capital requirement to 120 million Ghana cedis, the foreign banks were given a different timeline.
Absolutely.
Compared to the local banks. So that the local banks will be given some sufficient time to be able to put their house in order. If that is what they are asking for, then they have to be clear on that. But I think that in terms of increasing the minimum capital requirement for banks in the country, there's every economic reason to support the central bank's move. And I support the central bank in increasing the minimum capital requirement. Look, if you look at the total paid-up capital of banks relative to the size of the economy, it's very, very small. So the banking industry itself is not well capitalized to support the economic drive where the country is heading towards. And that is something that I think we have to look at. Maybe probably going forward, it may be useful for the central bank to have a clear plan, a 10-year strategic plan for the sector that says that in 10 years' time, this is where we want every bank to grow their capital into, and that feeds into bank strategic planning and implementation so that the issues of surprises, asking for extension, and all of that are not in. When we do that, then the market will be such that the financial market itself will pick the winners and the losers will also fall out.
Okay. Prof, I thank you very much for your time this evening. I'm indeed very grateful. Professor Godfrey Bob King is a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. So we can state for sure that no terms of reference from what we do know has been communicated as yet for this particular committee that has been established by the President to look into the concerns of these local banks.
Certainly, Alfred. But let's turn to the health sector now, as the Minister of Health, Kweku Agyeman-Manu, says the University of Ghana Medical Center will be completed soon, as Cabinet approves 50 million cedis for the second phase. Jabbing those who are criticizing the government for not putting the facility to use, he said the facility is not in any contention and will be used when it's completed.
Dr. Kweku Agyeman-Manu was answering questions at a press briefing in Accra. Journalists inquired about the state of the University of Ghana Medical Center, which is yet to commence operations.
Those who claim the place is completed, I am the minister, and I want to tell the Ghanaian population that the place is not completed. Cabinet has approved for $50 million extra to continue to go to do phase 2. You cannot run MRIs and imaging equipment on the national grid that sees a semblance of going up and down like that. The buffer generator is not there yet. So we should operationalize and support the equipment. There are certain little things that has not been done yet. So why the rush? I don't want to go into it, but some of the issues in there, if some of you will want to care and come close and look at documentation and look at how the place was being structured to be managed, you will weep for this country.
The $217 million facility, which had its first phase completed and inaugurated by former President John Mahama in 2016, remains dormant. In January this year, there was a tussle between the University of Ghana and the Ministry of Health over the management of the health center. The two institutions pledged in a joint communique to resolve their grievances to ensure smooth operations at the medical center.
Now, this evening's MTN video report, Bright Bote reports on a malfunctioning traffic light at the Medina Ridge Junction.
This is Medina Adenta Ridge Junction. This junction is linking to Hatuagogba and then Bote of Medina. It's about a month now, more than a month, this traffic light at the junction got faulty and nothing has been done about it. And it's very dangerous for the motorists using the road. As you can all see in the picture right now, it is very, very dangerous. And we appeal to the authorities responsible for this that immediate action be taken. We don't need to lose lives before something is being done about this. As a citizen journalist, my name is Bright Bote, reporting to TV3 News.
We want to encourage you out there also watching us of issues of national concern and social relevance in your vicinity or area. You can also send your video report via the WhatsApp number 055-1433-044, 055-1433-044.
You're watching News 360 from the News Hub at Adesawe Kando. We've got some more news for you from the world of business coming up shortly. Stay with us.
A very good evening to you. Thanks for staying with us on News 360. Time for business with me, Nanekia Mensah Brampa. Sure, you've had a feel of the business news talking about the minimum capital requirement, but to some other tonight, inflation of 10.4% is recorded in March, down by 0.2% from the 10.6% recorded in February. Now, the decline was attributed to the decline in price of non-food items.
Acting government statistician Ba Wadie explained the 0.2% fall in the inflation rate could be attributed to a decline in the price of non-food items, especially locally produced foodstuff.
That the drop in the CPI was due mainly to a decline in the inflation rates for most of the non-food items. We had declines in the inflation rate for transport, decline in the inflation rate for housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, decline in the inflation for most of the non-food items, and this accounted for the drop in the overall inflation rate.
Food and non-alcoholic beverages group recorded a year-on-year inflation rate of 7.3%, with some of the main prices being on fish and seafood, vegetables, oil and fats, meat and meat products. Non-food group recorded a year-on-year inflation rate of 11.8%, with main drivers coming from items such as transport, recreation and culture, clothing and footwear. In March 2018, imported goods recorded an inflation rate of 11.8%, which was 2.0 percentage points higher than locally produced goods of 9.8%. This is attributed to cost of shipping, import duties and other charges, as well as profit margins. The 2% decrease in consumer inflation suggests prices of consumer goods and services were fairly stable in March this year. Upper East recorded the lowest year-on-year inflation of 8.0%. Upper West recorded the highest inflation rate of 11.9% in March.
By and large, the effect of transport, clothing and footwear and miscellaneous goods are influencing what we are observing in Upper West region. This drift effect is also a factor in these figures that we are observing.
The Consumer Price Index, or Consumer Inflation Rate, measures the change over time in the general price level of goods and services that households acquired for the purpose of consumption in reference to a base year price level in 2012.
Right, so the minimum capital requirement has come under discussion, and PricewaterhouseCoopers has implored banks to invest less in capital-intensive projects which will not affect their cash flows. Now, the economic think tank group is of the view this will position the banks to face the risk and improve on their liquidity to meet the capital adequacy requirement of the Bank of Ghana.
The Bank of Ghana last year raised the minimum capital requirement to 400 million cedis. Commercial banks in the country have up to December 2018 to raise the amount. The new 400 million requirement represents a 333.3% increase from the current minimum capital of 120 million cedis. Experts have contended that banks which cannot meet the requirement should enter into mergers. At a forum in Accra, discussants expressed grave concern about some banks which have invested in real estate and unable to recoup their investments. A banking and capital markets regulatory practice leader in South Africa impressed on the banks to invest less in capital-intensive projects.
As capital gets more heavy, and as we all know, capital is not cheap, there will be a lot of efforts going into capital optimization projects, and very often, the RWA optimization projects, it's not necessarily coming up with extremely clever ideas. It's very often a simple matter of looking at the data.
He again suggested to the Bank of Ghana to hold periodic reviews of operations in the banking sector.
A lot of organizations have been doing detailed impact assessment and looking at implication on their systems, on their skills, and on their other resources, and really reassessing instead of looking at the whole Basel adoption as a compliance exercise.
Senior country partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Visha Shiabo, entreated banks to conduct impact assessments before investing in projects. The economic think tank group again proposed to the banks to engage in periodic skill set assessment to help them control risk.
And talking about the business of arts, Milcom Group of Companies has opened an arts exhibition to offer opportunity to budding artists to create works that can sell locally and internationally. At the opening, First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo said there's a need for artists in the country to be supported through funding, as arts has a great value to the economy. The Milcom Arts Exhibition showcases Ghanaian artists who, by standards of the arts industry, qualify to show their creativity on a national platform. Budding artists to have been identified so far include Nana Kwesi Jare-Ansa, Seth Alipo, Ayi Mensah, Odei Nyamiche, Daniel Ametape Kokobo, among others. At the opening of the arts exhibition, First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo said the arts industry has great economic value for artists and the economy, which still remains untapped.
Is art worth studying, worth funding, or even worth creating? Should we bother with art when we are dealing sometimes with bread and butter issues? The answer to all of these questions is an emphatic yes. For me, I like to think that art does not discriminate or limit us. Each of us is free to appreciate a piece of work in our own way. I'm therefore excited that Milcom is giving these artists a platform to display their work at no cost, which I believe will promote interest in art, boost the morale of artists, and contribute to the Buy Ghana campaign.
She congratulated Milcom Group for the initiative and called on other corporate bodies to replicate. Managing Director of Milcom Group of Companies, Ramesh Sadwani, said as part of efforts to stay in touch with customers across the country, 2 additional shops will be added to make the number 40.
In the coming weeks, we will be opening our 39th store at Labadi, and shortly thereafter, we will be opening our second and much larger store at Ofredwa, bringing the total count to 40 stores across the nation. We also have other projects under construction, namely in Mankasim, Rafinia, and Swami in Kumasi. All of this will culminate in adding another 200 to 250 new jobs in Ghana to our existing payroll of 2,400 plus.
Renowned Ghanaian artist Larry Otu mounted his artwork at the maiden edition of the exhibition. And the Ghana Revenue Authority has commenced the implementation of a 5-year tax exemption for entrepreneurs aged 35 and below. This forms part of initiatives to provide an enabling environment for young entrepreneurs to thrive.
As part of measures to stimulate investment and boost entrepreneurial development, the 2018 budget statement outlined tax incentives for young entrepreneurs aged 35 and below. At a tax and good governance seminar for students of some tertiary institutions, a lecturer at the GRA training school explained beneficiaries will be selected based on a number of factors.
When you are located in Accra and Tema, the rate is 20%. When you are located in the regional capitals, the rate is 15%. And when you are operating in the 3 northern regional capitals, the rate is 5%.
Lawson Hodgson indicated that all processes will be channeled through the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan. He added beneficiaries of the incentives will not only be allowed to carry forward losses for 5 years, but also preferential tax rates will be granted based on which region their business is located. Some students were excited about the prospects of developing the entrepreneurial skill.
It's a good idea because it encourages more entrepreneurs in respect to the young ones.
Oh yeah, it will actually encourage me to go into a business because I believe one thing that companies normally does in terms of these taxes is they don't declare their profit because they believe maybe when they do that, everything will go into taxation, then it will not help them to actually expand their businesses. So if I have that opportunity being exempted from tax, I think it's going to encourage me to actually go into business.
Right, so that's it for the business segment. There's more on 3news.com. My name is Nanikia Mensah-Brampa. We're talking politics now, and Alfred has more.
Thank you, Nanekia, for business. But a leading member of the opposition NDC and former Trades and Industry Minister, Dr. Ekos Spiogabra, has downplayed the impact of the party's regional unity walks, insisting the event has not been sanctioned by the NDC hierarchy. Speaking on New Day, Ekos Spiogabra maintained the unity walk has failed to unite the party because not all leading figures are giving the platform to engage party supporters.
They are not party-sanctioned walks, but
at least we've seen party executives leading that.
Anybody can join. Anybody can join any walk if you like. For example, some of us went and joined a demonstration under a Ghana First umbrella against the U.S.-Ghana military agreement. It was not an NDC organized walk per se, but the NDC supported it or thought it was in the right direction. The unity walks, as I understand them, I've participated in the one in the central region where I'm from, because they are regional walks. So if there's one in Wa, it's mostly for those in the upper west region. Even though anybody can attend them. If there's one in Ho, anybody can attend them, but you find that mostly those walking are those from that region.
I'm struggling to understand what you mean by it's not a party-sanctioned activity.
Yeah, because NDC...
Because you've seen Johnson Essiedu Nketia.
You're asking me a question and I'm answering it.
Exactly.
Yeah, the General Secretary of the party is also an NDC member as an individual with a name. He can attend anything he wants to do. If he says he's attending that work because the national headquarters has mandated him to come there, then that's when it becomes official. So, as I'm saying, I've been a vice chairman of the party. When the party wants to undertake an exercise, we sit as a functional executive committee, we sit as a national executive committee, and we say, we shall do the following. And the party will fund it, and the party will organize it. Those works are not currently being organized by the party as NDC.
Do you have a problem with the fact that
people are...
Do you have a problem with the fact that with all these unity walks we've seen, it's only the ex-president, John Dramani Mahama, at this point he's not made it clear that he's going to contest as flag bearer. There are indications. Do you have a problem that aspirants like yourself, Professor Joshua Labi, are not given the opportunity to address these unity walks?
Well, that is what made some of us feel that the walks are not as unifying, excuse me, as they were intended to be or as they were announced to be.
Now, this entire interview is going to be aired tomorrow on New Day, so be sure to catch up with that. On some other stories, the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection has launched Operation Get Off the Streets to rid streets of children and support the vulnerable in Ghana. A director of the Gender Ministry, Reverend Dr. Comfort Asari, who disclosed this at a forum in Accra, said the active involvement of duty bearers is critical to curbing streetism.
The 1998 Children's Act of Ghana states that persons aged 15 and below must not be allowed to work or fend for themselves. An estimated 61,492 children are on the streets of Accra struggling to survive. Due to poverty and delinquency, some of the youth have been lured into social vices. As part of efforts to end streetism and enroll children in school, the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection has launched a program dubbed Operation Get Off the Street.
The ministry has identified some training centers in the regions. We've identified some of our facilities like the remand homes, where there are shelters supposed to be for children who have been remanded by the courts, but are dormant. We are going to use such facilities to train some of the people we identify on the streets who will be willing to be trained in some vocation.
Executive Director of Mount Providence, Dr. Christine Tetega, expressed concern over the rising number of street children in the country. She entreated the public to support the vulnerable and deprived children to acquire skills that would make them employable, independent and responsible adults in future.
We are starting with widows, widowers and street children, orphans, because these are vulnerable group of people. They need help from us. So we are giving counseling to them, particularly those who are down. When a husband dies or a wife and the partner is left, the person is so down and needs counseling to bring up the person's spirits.
Other stakeholders at the forum encouraged parents to strive to provide economic support for their wards.
It's live on News 360. We'll be back with some more news after this. Do stay.
Welcome back to News 360. In some international news this evening, an Algerian military plane has crashed near the capital, killing 257 people on board. The aircraft came down just after taking off from Boufarik Military Airport, west of Algiers.
An inquiry is underway into the cause of the crash, Algeria's worst ever disaster. The government has declared 3 days of national mourning. Most of the dead are army personnel and their families, according to the Defense Ministry. 10 crew members also died. Passengers from Western Sahara, a disputed territory annexed by Morocco after Spain withdrew in 1975, were among the fatalities. The Polisario Front, which is seeking independence from the territory and is backed by Algeria, says 30 Western Saharans, including women and children, died. A senior member of Algeria's ruling FLN party said those killed included 26 Polisario members. The authorities are working to identify remains of those killed. Footage from the scene shows smoke coming off wreckage in a field.
We've got some more international news on our website. It's 3news.com. Next is some entertainment news with Nana Addo.
So good evening. It's now time for some entertainment and lifestyle news with me, Nana Kwejuado. And of course, like you know, we have 3 days to the big night on the music and entertainment calendar in Ghana. And so we still have some news for you. Moving on to the very first story, the 19th Vodafone Ghana Music Awards, VGMA, is just 3 days away, like I said. Any idea of which musicians have won the Artist of the Year since its inception? Just to clear the doubt, Owusu Warai has for you the list of VGMA top winners from when it started to the year 2010.
The prestigious Ghana Music Awards has for 18 years been celebrating outstanding Ghanaian musicians. The award has always left in its trail varied sentiments. While losers are left disappointed, it is all bliss for the big winners on any VGMA night. 2000, Daddy Lumba. Born Charles Kojo Fosu, aka Daddy Lumba, the singer won Artist of the Year at the Maiden Ghana Music Awards, held in the year 2000. Released in 1998, DL's mega hit Abinwaha did the magic for the hitmaker. Patronage of the song soared thanks to speculations that Abinwaha had then been banned by the National Commission on Culture for its explicit content. Curious to know the content? Music lovers grabbed copies of the cassette, making it an instant hit. 2001, Kojo Entry. Born Julius Kojo Entry, Afro-pop highlife and reggae musician, Kojo Entry, also known as Music Maestro, succeeded Lumba, winning the 2001 awards. Celebrated for his vocal prowess, Kojo Entry still remains relevant after over 3 decades of gracing the music scenes. Other top VGMA winners include 2002 rapper Lord Kenya won the topmost honors in the year. Lord Kenya, now an evangelist, won the competition ahead of his bitterest rival, Obrafo. 2003, Conti Hene. 2004, VIP. 2005, Bice Osei Kufo, aka Obo. 2006, Ofori Amponsa. 2007, Samini. 2008, Kwokese. 2009, Ochamikwame. 2010, Sarkodie.
You know what time it is. Sometimes when I sit down to reminisce about the thing we be to do, girl, give me a kiss. Now we got more things to do.
So that was it. I mean, from 2000 to 2010, Sarkodie was on there, and Kwokese swept the awards in 2008. But moving on to the next story, he had the most nominations at the 17th VGMAs and took home 5 of the coveted awards. 2 years on, Elom Adabla, known by stage name as EL, failed to grab a nomination.
Deserves to be out there. Everybody on the list has worked so hard another year of review, and I wish everybody the best, man. I couldn't be a part of it because another year of review, I didn't actually participate in the industry that much. But I'm hoping next year we make something happen.
Shatawale, Sarkodie, Stonebwoy, Joe Metal and Ebony Reigns are in the race for the topmost honors, VGMA Artiste of the Year. EL is, however, rooting for Ebony Reigns to win.
Between Shatta, Stonebwoy, Joe Metal, and Ebony, who's Artist of the Year for you?
To me, personally, it's Ebony, because I think she, I mean, look at the year under review. She caused us the most shock, the most awe, the most entertainment. And so for me, for EL, it's Ebony.
Just so he is in contention for the next awards, the hitmaker is out with a new single titled Overdose.
Say my baby, they do me better. I know coffee to measure.
All right, so the question still remains, who is going to take home the Artist of the Year prize this Saturday night at the Accra International Conference Center? The argument has begun here between Natalie and Alfred. Alfred says...
Shatawale all the way for him.
My name is Nana Kwejwado, and that was the entertainment news.
Shatawas. My name is Alfredo Kanse.
And I'm Natalie Ford. Thanks for watching. We've got more news on our website, 3news.com. Have a lovely evening.